Hello, we're going to use the easy wet on wet technique and I'm going to show you exactly how to make this flower pop with some details which I'll show you right at the end. It's really easy, it's a step-by-step tutorial, so come and join me. This outline is available in my Etsy shop. I'll leave you the details in the description box for you. I'm using the simple but famous wet on wet technique. I'm using an Escoda brush and I'm just literally wetting the area. I am putting down quite a bit of water just to make sure I get the effect that I want, which is this: when you pop down a little bit of the pigment of this Quinocradone Magenta is the colour I'm using, and you get this effect. I'm just dabbing my brush here and I'm just mixing the pigment where it's not quite joined or you've created that cauliflower effect, which is sometimes a good thing. I don't think it's a problem here. I'm just going to mix it slightly, and as you can see, I'm just moving the pigment around within where I've got the water, within the petal, and the effects will just be so beautiful at the end. But I'm just mixing that in so that I get a neatish overall effect, and then we don't get that separation that we saw just earlier. All the materials are in the description box and you can actually choose whatever colour you like. All I'm doing here is just dropping some little bits of pigment into the water, and it's easy in the sense that you're not actually doing the work. It's the brush, the pigment and the water that's doing the work for you. You're creating the effect in the sense of you're putting the pigment where you want to put it, and you'll see a nice gradual gradient effect like I showed you at the beginning. I've moved on to the next petal now, and as you can see, it's not the petal next to it. I have also sped this up slightly because it is the same thing, which is putting the water down, make sure the area is covered as best as possible, and we're going to create that bloom or bleeding effect in exactly the same way. Look how gorgeous and beautiful it is. Just enjoy it. I have put down quite a bit of water, and because of that, that's the bloom that it's creating, or the bleeding that it's creating. When you add the pigment to quite a bit of water, this is exactly the effect that you will get. And also I'm concentrating more on just the edges. I'm not adding in too much pigment into the center of the petals. I'm just adding in drops of pigment onto the edges and then mixing that within the petal, and then when we add our details later, you will see the effect that creates. By the way, I'm Shanaz. Welcome or welcome back. This is Bloom Art by SW, and I should also say Happy New Year. Hope you had a great Christmas. It seems so long away already. We are in 2026, and I thought it would be great just to show you some easy techniques using the same picture. So this is going to be the first series, the first one of a series of 3 flowers that I'm going to do using exactly the same picture, exactly the same template, and come up with 3 different ideas for you. So in this one, we're just going to use one colour, and I'm going to use the wet on wet technique for pretty much the whole of this picture, just to show you, if you are a beginner, how easy it is to get into using watercolours. Using this technique, the wet on wet technique, using lots of water, it will help you understand how to control the water. So if you do put too much on, you will still get that kind of effect. I didn't realise this bit of the page was cut off, so I'll show you the bleed bit, and then we'll move on to the next petal, but it is doing exactly the same technique. I'm using QOR paints, and I've got 100% Baohong cotton paper. So I said that the wrong way around. 100% cotton paper by Baohong. If you've got some slightly different paper or a different brand of paint that you're using, you may very well get a different result. but you do need to use 100% cotton paper. You may get away with using a slightly lesser percentage, but it is best to use 100% cotton paper and ideally 300 GSM, which is the weight of the paper, to be able to hold the water. In case you didn't know, watercolour pigment dries much lighter than when you put it on. So it looks like the pigment is quite dark, which it is, but when it dries, you will see that it is going to be so much lighter. I'm gently moving the water and the pigment around this bud just to get it the way I want it. Basically, the darker pigment is going to be at the bottom. I'm just going to see if these are dry. They're not, they're a tiny bit damp, and I don't want to colour in the petal right next to it because it's slightly damp. The colours will basically bleed into one another and then you won't get that separate petal. So that's why I'm just going to wait for them to dry and work on this petal instead. You can use a heat gun if you've got one, or a hairdryer. I've just always found it better and just easier just to let it dry naturally. Entirely up to you though. You don't have to paint a watercolour all in one go. The best way that I've found it is do a painting, do it in stages. The drawing stage, the first stage, which is getting your colours down block by block. Let that dry, go and have a cup of tea, go and put a wash on. You can tell I'm a mum, I've got a family. Yes, they've grown up, but I've still got house things to do. Go and do dinner, get all of that stuff out of the way, and then come back to it and do your next layer. Perhaps go and get a cup of tea or a coffee and then come back and finish off with the final layer. That is pretty much what my days look like when I focus on watercolours. You might just have to find your own routine. So whilst I'm still waiting for the other petals to dry, I'm going to focus on the stem, which here I've just got some Sap Green. Again, it's not so much about the colour, it's more about just practice, getting the feel of the paintbrush, the water and the actual paints as well, because until you actually do it, you won't know exactly how it feels. And all I'm doing here is just putting a little bit of colour down. It's fairly watered down with just a touch of green, and it's just to get that colour down whilst I'm waiting. And I'm just going in with some slightly darker green. I am being careful not to touch the petals because they are just still slightly damp. And if you touch the green with the petal, the green will bleed into the petal, which is fine for some paintings. And I'm also putting down some darker greens to a select area. I haven't done it all over the place because we don't want it all in one colour. A variation of shades of green will make the stem stand out a bit more, as well as just highlight the petals as well. And whilst the stem is still wet, I'm just moving the paint around within the stem, and I'm not adding in any more water or pigment. There's plenty on the paper, so I'm just literally just moving that about a little bit. And then let that dry. About 10 to 15 minutes or so should be fine. And then we can work on the petals that we left. This is why I really like the wet on wet technique. It is so simple to do. If you are a beginner, this is definitely the first technique I would definitely try. And also just notice that I'm leaving a tiny bit of the white to separate the petals a little bit. If you go over it, it's not a problem. I'm just saying that now just to try and be careful. Because we don't normally use white in watercolour painting, you use the white paper is the white of your subject, if you like. So I'm just pointing that out for you. I feel like I've added on a touch bit too much of the pigment here, so literally just blend that out a little bit. Like we did earlier, just blend it out a touch. I'm not too worried about it. It adds to the effect or texture of the petal, so I'm not too worried about that. And I'm just going to move on to the next petal. same thing here. I think I've added on too much, but because there's so much water, when you dab your brush, you can easily move the paint around on the paper and put it where you want to put it. This is what I mean by, yes, you're using lots of water, but you can actually learn to control the water. So this part of the petal is underneath another petal, so it's going to be slightly darker, and this is why I've put down a bit more pigment, which is intentional. It's exactly what I wanted to do, and I'm just going to blend that in, but that bit is going to remain slightly darker. I hope I'm explaining my thought process, and I'm hoping I can get across to you how I use watercolours. Everyone's got their own different techniques and different way of using watercolour. So I've repeated the process with this one as well. This one is going to be a darker petal as well, because it's sort of angled underneath all of the petals, if you like. So again, I'm doing it on purpose where I am adding extra pigment, and then I'm blending that nice and slowly, nice and carefully to sort of form the petal the way I want it to form. I'm rinsing my brush here, I'm dabbing the excess water off, and then I'm actually lifting a tiny bit of the paint off, just to make sure I don't fill the whole petal with lots of pigment. I hope I'm making sense for you. Leave all the petals to dry and then carry on with the stem again, and all I'm doing here is just connecting up where I've missed off earlier, and just adding some pigment, adding some green. So I've used Sap Green and Hooker's Green, and I'm just going to make this bit a bit more noticeable because it's a bud. And then just let that dry again for a few minutes. So the brush I'm using has got a nice little point on it, even though it's a size 8 Escoda brush. I'm using the same Quinocradone Magenta, but now I'm not using as much water. If it helps, feel free to practice on a scrap piece of paper, or just use a slightly smaller brush. Ideally use a round brush with a point, or a small brush that you feel comfortable with doing these kinds of lines, which will be your veins. I'm not being perfect, but I am being careful because I don't want the lines to be too thick. In fact, the thinner the better, and if you break the line, which I am going to show you as well, it actually looks better as well. And it looks like if you curve the line or the veins ever so slightly, it will give the illusion that the petal is curved. I'm working on the bud now, and I'm just going to make the edges stand out a bit more and make it look like it's about to open up, or when it opens up it's going to be these petals. I don't think I mentioned this, but I'm not going for realism. I'm just going for nice little practice. Like I say, it's a brand new year. I just wanted to do a nice new project for you and just show you exactly how easy it is to get into watercolours, and it doesn't have to be complicated. There's so many different techniques, so many different ways of using watercolours, but if you're a beginner, just start out nice and slowly, learn the basics and practice those basics, and then you can work your way up. So I'm just going to go around the edges with the same pigment and using not too much water. You don't have to be perfect. We're creating texture and you don't have to do it all over. So it is these little details that will make your petals pop, and that's why I wanted to show you from the transformation from before and after. This is exactly what I wanted to show you, and is exactly how to make your petals pop. Just some simple details added in, and I'll show you some more in a second. If you add in some more of those lines or veins or texture of the petal, but just be really light with your paintbrush and your paint. And the same thing, don't use too much water, and just add in these lines, broken lines, really faint. You can always go back and add them in if you haven't got enough on, but these are what make your petals pop. So we've just got the final bit to add in, which is just the centre of the petal, and I'm going in with some dark pigment, much darker pigment, just to make this stand out a bit more. I haven't waited for the lines to dry because I haven't used a lot of water. They're actually still fine to carry on painting. So all I'm doing is some little circles to represent the pollen, and then I'm just going to add some darker areas into that centre of the petals. Oh, but just try and be careful you don't cover up that white. And then finally, just finish off the stem in some areas, exactly the same thing, but just with a bit more pigment, and sign your picture. And that is it. I hope you found that useful and helpful. I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave me a comment and let me know if you have any questions, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye. YouTube recommends you watch this video next, so why not take a look?